Welcome back. We're taking a look at future-proofing Africa's mining industry and focusing specifically on energy in that context. And we now speak to a miner in South Africa that has just clinched its second big renewable energy deal. Northern Platinum has finalized a power purchase agreement with an independent power producer for a 140 megawatt wind farm. And with me now is the miner's CEO, Paul Dunn. Paul, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Bronwyn.
So the wind farm is expected to generate 460 gigawatt hours of energy per year. That will then be transmitted over Eskom's grid to your three mining and processing operations. But what does that actually mean for you? Put that deal into perspective for us.
In a way, there are two elements of importance for a miner or for any business. Firstly, we have an energy cost of about 2.6 billion rand per annum for the three mining units, which is about 12% of the cost base. So it's very substantial cost input for mining. So this will give us a cost saving. And the second point is we emit in our Scope 2 emissions 1.7 million tons of CO2 per annum through our use of the Eskom grid. Because it's, of course, coal-fired power. So we will alleviate the carbon footprint by 45%, and we will save around about 500 million rand per annum out of the 2.6 that we currently pay.
This deal coming when you've also signed a power purchase agreement for an 80 megawatt solar power plant that happening last year. What do these two projects together get you in terms of your goals to cut carbon emissions?
Yeah, our stated target publicly is we will cut emissions by 60% by 2030. And the two together, which are now in construction, will give us 45% of that. So you can see we're well on the way. I do believe we'll beat the 60%. And aspirationally, we would like to halve our power bill over time through the use of renewables. So this will not be the last.
So 60% by 2030, and you're saying you're potentially going to overshoot that target. You know, there's a lot of conversation around whether there's enough projects for miners to tap into as well. Are you finding that it's easy to have options, I guess, to say, you know, we want to look at this wind farm, we want to look at this solar project. Is there a lot happening in that space where you can really tap into good quality projects?
Yeah, it's a good point. There are not necessarily that many wind projects available to us as mining companies. So one has to be, we have to work hard and chase them down. It's quite a complicated field from a commercial point of view with quite a number of counterparties. And of course, Eskom themselves have certain control over certain of the permissions. So it is a complex, I would say, a complex multi-counterparty commercial situation. So I would say it's not so easy, and we've been busy with this for a couple of years already to get to this point.
You say it's a complex situation to navigate. Are there discussions around making that process a lot easier? Are players really coming to the table, and that being private sector players like yourselves, the state coming to the table as well to take a look at how this can all be much easier, because at the end of the day, all of our goals are the same: stable power supply that can boost economic growth, and doing that in a renewable way, even more so helping the situation.
I think through necessity, we all know how difficult the situation has been for the country over the last few years with load shedding. Through necessity, it has become slightly easier, but it's not, I wouldn't say it's easy at all, because remember, we are in direct competition with Eskom themselves to a high degree. And that does bring that competitive dynamic. And as I mentioned, in some elements of the permitting, Eskom themselves are in control of that.
Absolutely. You mentioned Eskom and load shedding, and that really haunting the mining sector for many years here in South Africa. But for the most part, for about a year now, load shedding has been suspended. From your perspective, load shedding done for now or load shedding done for good?
done for now, I would say, and we must recognize and congratulate Eskom. They have done well over the last period, to everybody's great relief, and in particular the heavy users in industry. It's made our life a lot easier this last year. However, I don't believe it's gone for good just yet. We do need quite a large renewable program to replace the older coal-fired power stations by the end of this decade, and Northern will do its bit. When we embark upon these projects, we don't only help ourselves, we help the whole grid, and therefore the whole of society. So I think each of my colleagues across the mining space are doing similar projects, and collectively we'll make a great contribution to power security, I'm pretty sure.
Paul, you've been CEO at Northam for over 10 years now, and that's not even the sum total of your experience in the industry. But if you look at where things are headed in the sector from a power perspective specifically, are we headed in the right direction? And more importantly, so are we headed in the right direction with enough urgency to address these challenges that are coming up so that we can ensure that the mining industry not only survives, but thrives in years to come?
Yeah, I do believe there's a great deal of urgency across the country from the various role players, including the GNU, of course, Eskom themselves, and the big industrial users. We helping ourselves as quickly as we can. There's a pressing business need, energy security I've mentioned, but the cost of power, the escalation of power on a per unit basis. We've just seen NERSA agree to, I think it was a 14% unit cost increase for this coming year. CPI is way below that, in the region of 3%. What we will be able to do, and what we have done through the commercial arrangements with the IPPs, is secure CPI increases into the future, which in theory will be far lower than the Eskom increases. So this is why we are very, very keen. And I do want to mention once again, it is our intention to halve the power bill through a multiplicity of renewable projects. We have projects on the board for Eland and Booysendal, and this is not the last of what we're going to do.
Not the last, I'm sure I'll be chatting to you again in the future as you reach those goals. But for today, let's leave it there. Paul, thanks so much for your time. That was Northern Platinum CEO Paul Dunn. And then as we wrap up, this year's Investing in African Mining Indaba recently took place with a significant focus on future-proofing the industry. Conversations there centered on what can be done today to ensure that this sector is developed sustainably. And to that end, Anglo American, through its diamond unit De Beers, and in partnership with Sasol, announced a venture at the Indaba to do exactly that. Their plan is to produce renewable diesel. How it works is that De Beers will grow crops that will create vegetable oil, which Sasol can turn into renewable diesel. That fuel will then be used by De Beers at its operations. So to find out more about the venture, I caught up with Donnie Cronje, Senior Vice President of Green Hydrogen Global Market Development at Sasol, and started that conversation off by asking him just how long this deal has been in the making. So let's take a look.
From idea conception, it took us a couple of months to land it. And really, it was to ensure that we align on the outcomes that will work for both of the partners and what we want to achieve from that perspective. Now, these ideas, it's not somebody's idea that just originates. We want to pen it into an agreement. It is a bit forming it together and actually understanding the objectives of the partners and how we can find a way of actually delivering on those objectives together. And that makes us stronger at the end of the day.
Do you have proof of concept yet?
So this is a bit of a proof of concept in many ways. So this JDA marks really the start of a test period for us to work out the details. And what it entails really is that we first develop and plant energy crops. These energy crops will be planted on land that will be provided by our partners in De Beers and Anglo, as well as Sasol. And we really want to test what the yields of the energy crops are and take the data from that then to see how we take that into a commercial process. What we also know is that our plant can cope and can process these volumes, and we'll be finalizing that test in the next few weeks just to confirm that. And then it's all about how do we maximize the value and set up the supply chain to ensure that it makes sense from a commercialization perspective to achieve our objectives.
So is it a costly exercise then for any of the parties to test the viability of this?
There's some cost associated with it, and what's nice about this, in fact, is that there's not major capital expenditure, first of all, required. So the cost involved here really is planting the seeds, growing that with the right fertilizers and water and all the labor that goes with that. And also our plants can deal with the volumes that we're talking for the test period. So for now, there's not a lot of capital. What's really nice about the product that we produce at the end of the day, the renewable diesel, it's a transformative product. It meets the technical standards of a conventional diesel, but it comes with that significant reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. So our customers like Anglo and De Beers can literally just take the product and use it in the current equipment, in the current vehicles, in the current trucks. So there's no additional expenditure from that perspective onwards. So it's the initial phase is at pretty low cost overall. Once we go into commercialization phases, further capital expenditure will be required, and that's where some cost will come in.
So a solution really fit for purpose then. But Donnie, put it into perspective for us. Give us a sense of how much land is needed, how much fuel can be extracted from that, and then in the greater scheme of things, how much of that fuel then meets De Beers' needs. I know this is just a test kind of at the moment, but as you move forward, I'm trying to get a sense of, how much are you putting in, how much are you getting out? Is this nice to have, or is this something that really comes to the fore as a permanent solution?
It's certainly, we think it can become a permanent solution. There's lots of development that needs to happen from a long-term supply chain development perspective. But just to give you a bit of a sense, De Beers' overall volumes are around 400 million. We think the market, by the way, is a lot bigger if I look at all our other customers. So there's a really big market in South Africa for this. On the test period, the big thing that we need to now see is what the yields are from these energy crops, and do we get what we expect to get from that. Standard sort of return that we expect, it's between 2,000 to 3,000 liters of oil per hectare. So there is a lot of hectare that you need to plant at the end of the day to make it commercially viable. But the nice part about this is there's lots of disturbed mining land available. So we don't believe that land is the issue. It's really about making sure that we can get the crops planted at scale, and it gets us to a cost-effective yield to make it work for us at the end of the day. So the combination of the yield versus the cost to plant the crops, that's the part that we want to test and to make sure that we can get that cost as low as possible to make this efficient product at the end of the day.
So we'll have to see where it goes. You are saying that it makes sense for the miners, but I'm wondering, does this necessarily mean that you can take this model now and go to other players in perhaps other sectors that are, heavily reliant on diesel, that can make use of renewable diesel going forward?
Absolutely. So the product really meets the same chemical spec as conventional fossil diesel. So any customer that uses diesel can actually use this product in their processes. You can put that in your diesel car that you drive today, and it will work perfectly fine. It's no different than conventional diesel. It's the input that changes from oil-based input into a vegetable oil-based, and then we achieve that lower carbon emissions associated with that product. And therefore, it's a really exciting opportunity for us to enter the market into.
And it really does come at such a crucial time, right, as everyone looks to make their operations more sustainable.
correct. There's a number of key ingredients to this partnership that we're very excited about. We think we can really use our disturbed mining land and its water to feed and grow the plants. It will create lots of jobs. It will create farming jobs in areas that really need it. It reduces our greenhouse gas emissions. We really think we've got a winner here, and we're going to make it our best to make it work for us at the end of the day.
And with that, we've come to the end of this episode of Insights from Africa, but it doesn't mean you need to stop watching. You can rewatch any of the discussions we've had on the show by going to our YouTube channel and clicking on the Insights from Africa playlist. And once you've had your fill there, be sure to go onto social media and follow us, as we like to drop some teasers for our upcoming shows on platforms such as X, TikTok and LinkedIn. But for now, here on Business Day TV at least, I'll leave it there and say goodbye. Insights from Africa is brought to you in partnership with Standard Bank.